Sirens, Slammers, and Service, a podcast for female first responders by female first responders. My name is Nikki Clucci, and I will be your host. As a former correctional officer in Alberta for almost 2 decades and the founder of Blue Line Fitness Testing, which provides law enforcement fitness testing and first responder wellness workshops, I started this podcast as a way for female first responders to share the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of their daily work. I want to showcase the unique perspectives, skill sets, and personalities that women bring to a first responder career and share their stories. So get ready to laugh your ass off, learn a whole bunch, and be inspired by some pretty badass women. Let's go. I'm going to start my timer because otherwise I'll talk for 58 years and look at the time and be like, fuck, it's too late. Okay. And I clear my stuffy, snotty nose because that's how I fucking feel today. All right. You ready to go?
Yep.
Beautiful. Okay. So we are going to go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, guys. Oh my gosh. Today I am joined by an absolute gem of a human who I only recently met, but absolutely am in love with. Today I'm joined by Taylor Sullivan. Taylor is a registered nurse in the PICU as a transport nurse, and she's also a nurse at the Grey Nuns in labor and delivery. She does stints in the pediatric intensive care unit and the pediatric cardiac intensive care unit. She's also a CrossFit coach. She's a rugby player. She's a mama to 2 adorable bibbies, and she makes one badass fucking sourdough loaf, as I can attest because she made one for me and it's fucking delicious. And in her own words, she also is raging postpartum and has a scooch of anxiety. Welcome, Taylor. So happy to have you on the show today. How are you?
Oh, I'm so good. The anxiety's at bay today, so it's a good day.
I feel you. I feel you. There's days where you're like, I am fucking rocking today. I'm killing it. Today's going to be a great day. And then there's other days where you're like, do I have to get out of my house today? Do I have to leave?
But the weather also helps that it's a bit sunny outside. It's good.
Dude, I said that this morning. So I had to go and teach a class this morning and I was not feeling, my body's sore. I did something to my shoulder in our last game. I don't know. It's bugging me. My knee is bugging me. And I'm just like, I was like, I don't want to get up. And like teaching a class, you have to be on. Like you can't go and not like, right? You can't be having a shitty day. Like you have to go. And so I was driving and I was like, oh, and then I was like, but the sun's out. And like, oh, that's a beautiful view as I'm driving. And then I got there and one of my cute little regulars, his name is Ed, and he's just like an older gentleman. He was like, Nikki, how's that garden doing today? And I was like, oh my God, I fucking love you, Ed. Like, and now instantly I'm in a better mood. The sun is shining. It's a great day. So,
what knee injury? What shoulder injury? Ed made it all better.
Exactly. So I basically coerced you into being on this podcast by saying, I want to talk to you and I want to get to know you better. And I love all the things that you do. So tell me, because you wear a lot of hats, like a whole lot of different hats, definitely super interested in the flight nurse, transport nurse part of your job, but also love labor and delivery. I mean, having had 3 kids, intimately knowledgeable as to what goes on in there. I'd love to hear from our nursing friends. So tell me, how did you kind of get into nursing? What drove you towards the pediatric side of things? And let's kind of delve into that.
I always say I'm so lucky that when I was in high school, I always knew what I wanted to do, because I think that is such a tough thing to lay on like 18-year-olds when they're graduating, being like, oh, you got to pick what you're going to go into university to. That was always easy for me. I have always been interested in the human body and helping others. And I don't know, I think it's just like the trauma that I've had inflicted on me as a child. But I think I've always wanted to help others, and I have always loved medicine. And for me also too, like I grew up with a single mom who struggled to provide for us. And I always knew I wanted a job that I had security in. And so like nursing checked all these fantastic boxes. It was 4 years of school, like done, easy. So it was amazing. I got in right out of high school. And throughout high school, I worked at a YMCA doing tons of kids programming. That was like my after school job. And throughout nursing school, I did that too. I babysat a lot. Like kids have always been a part of my life. So that kind of was always in, the back of my head that I wanted to do that. And, nursing school is super competitive. And if you want to work with kids, you got to work your ass off. And so I did that. And I was really lucky that I got my preceptorship, so my final placement in the Pediatric ICU. And I had always kind of wanted to do emerge nursing because I thought it encompassed like it's a little bit of everything. And so I was like, ICU kind of was like, I was happy with it, but I kind of wanted to merge. And then actually throughout my last year of school, I got a job in the cardiovascular ICU. So with the adults as an undergrad nurse, which was an amazing like enlightenment, like, oh wow, ICU is my playground. Like I just, the complexity of everything that you have to know and do, and the one-to-one patient care, I just fell in love with ICU. And then when I had my peds rotation, my last one, I was like, well, this is my people. Like the tiny humans are even harder to work with, but I loved that challenge. And it's just definitely like I needed that, you know, the adrenaline rush. So peds ICU has been my very first job out of the gate. And, you know, as I started the first couple of years, like obviously it was really tough. And then as I started to feel more comfortable, the thought of doing transport within the peds ICU began to be more something, you know, I wanted to pursue. So, you know, I never, this is going to sound really stupid, but I was a big dog mom. I had my little Winston, my little French bulldog that was like my whole world because I had no kids and no boyfriend or anything at the time. And I was like, I can't do transport. I can't leave my little puppy alone for like 16 hours, like at a time. And then I started dating my now husband. And then it sounds really dumb, but I was like, you know, he's got a stepdad. I can do this now. We got someone to watch him. And actually my husband's the reason I applied for the job. But yeah, I applied back in 2019 to do the role of transport after being in the ICU for about 5 years. And, you know, I've loved it and never looked back. Like it is such a wild job. And definitely nothing prepared me more for it until I actually was on my own after I'd done all my training and things like that. But like, what a cool job to do that I literally get to come home after my shift and, you know, my husband's like, how's your day? I was like, oh, just went to Yellowknife and then to Red Deer and, you know, saved a life and, you know, did this and that, started about 40 IVs, you know, nothing big. And he's just like mouth open.
Yeah, totally.
Right. So yeah, like it's a crazy job, but I'm so lucky that I've been able to pursue it. Like I love my job so much.
I think that's amazing. And you can hear it in your voice, like how that really is like your passion and where your fit is. So break me down into like a little bit of the training. So you 4-year Bachelor of Nursing degree. When did you graduate from university?
2015. So I literally like finished my nursing school, started work in the PICU, wrote my NCLEX, my licensing exam, and then got my RN, which I still was working in PICU. And then, yeah, like I have been working there ever since I graduated. So since 2015, so coming on 9 years now. And then they say like you only need about 2 years of ICU experience to join transport. But for me, like I knew that was not enough. Like the great thing about peds is how much you see. Like there's so many things that you don't get taught in nursing school about pediatrics because unfortunately there's so many ailments and diseases that don't make it to adulthood. And that's ultimately like what nursing school dives into is like a lot of the adult diseases and ailments. And so I was like seeing all these things for the first time. And the hospital that I work at is amazing because we literally are a catchment for half of Canada for these patients to come and seek treatment. So we're seeing like such a small percentage of these super rare, you know, cases, and like how like incredibly fascinating. Like you can't go to my job and say that you've seen it all because you don't. Mm-hmm. And like even from the time I started to like now, the surgeries that we're doing are so much more complex. Like the kids that we were saying, you know, aren't going to make it to age 2 or now making it to age 10 to like now they're graduating high school. And the adult world of ICU was like, we don't know what to do with them because like these kids have only just started living to adulthood. And it's like cool that I can say that like I've gotten to be a part of that and seen progression of medicine. So like, you know, that's been really fun. I love that part of my job.
Yeah, that's like for me, it'd be like, because again, I'm the same as you. Love kids, love coaching, love that. Like just love their energy and what. Yeah, Coach Nikki. I love it. I do love it. And so I think like, you know, if I was to do nursing, I think that probably would have been where I would have gone. Very similar to you, like peds, ICU, emergency, right? But I also feel like I think that it would be hard to not get emotionally attached to the kids.
Yeah.
You know, because you are seeing like a one-off kid with a one-off random disease that
he or she doesn't know what's going on. Their parents don't know what's going on. You're doing your best to just figure out what's going on.
Sometimes we don't know what's going on.
Totally. Yeah. So I think that would be hard for me to like really kind of be able to subtract myself from that. But so going into ICU, so you do your 4-year Bachelor of Nursing degree. And then when you go into the ICU, like, is there more like classes you have to take? Is there more training? Is it just like on the job? Like, hey, we're going to go do this. Come with us. And like, it's Grey's Anatomy. Let's go do it together. Right?
A little bit of both. Like the great thing I also love about my job is like, we are always afforded education opportunities and it's so encouraged. And honestly, like in any job space, if you're not given that, I feel like you need to move jobs. And that's also why I've stayed, because, you know, education is changing all the time and you have to really keep up with it. So around transport itself, like it's an entire technically separate job title, so it requires additional training on top of the already intensive ICU training that like I've already had those 5 years prior. So the training itself is a lot of classroom, but it's more so like on the job, like you're with another transport nurse going on transports. And it took about 6 months of training for me to actually be working on my own. And excuse me, when I started training, it was an unreal. We have respiratory seasons every year, but the season that I started training was insane. Like we were going on transports twice a shift, which is a very long shift because we work 12s. Sometimes with transport, we're working 16, 18-hour shifts. Like it's insane. So like I'd be coming home just absolutely like dead and beat and like, you know, I was like, should I be doing this? Like I was getting sick all the time because like I was stuck in this metal airplane recycling air. And I just was like getting the black lung every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely like was great training. But, you know, like I said before, you don't really learn until you're in it on your own. And so when I was stuck by myself with my RT, because that's all our team is it's just myself or any RN with another transport trained respiratory therapist. And the two of us are like a team together. We rarely take a physician with us if the case is like extremely complex or we see that they're going to need to be going on life support. So not just a ventilator, like we can handle a kid on a ventilator on our own, but if they're needing like a heart lung machine, then that requires a lot more people. But, you know, we have a whole cavalry for that. So yeah, it's just the two of us. And like, basically we're just waiting at the hospital for a phone call from anywhere in Western Canada, basically saying like, we got this kid, please come pick them up. We don't have the resources. And honestly, we're so lucky to live in the city that we do, that we have an amazing like pediatric facility, but we are it besides sick kids in Toronto. Like we are so lucky it's in our city and like sick kids. So like those are the two meccas in North America for pediatric care, in Canada. But yeah, so like we're sitting waiting. If there's a code call in the hospital, I'm the one that goes and runs that or helps run that code. If there's like we call it a rapid response. So if kid's not looking great, they're not yet arrested, we're that team that goes and hopefully tries to like solve the situation. If any kid in the hospital needs an IV, like literally the whole hospital, I'm the one that starts it, like not even the ones that need to happen in the ICU. If our ICU kids need to go for an MRI or a CT, we have to take them because kids are so touchy. Like they can be fine 1 second and then crunk on you the next. So, you know, it's a lot different than the adult world of nursing. You have to be 10 steps ahead of them and you have to be prepared for everything because they are fine until they're not. And I've had some scary situations in a hallway where, you know, I've been like, you know, grabbing the oh shit handle and being like, we gotta hustle our, you know, tails because this kid's about to see the light. So, you know, it's like you have to be on your toes. You have to always be prepared for anything. And you have to like understand that like you might not get your breaks. You might not get to go home on time. You might have to come in early, but at the same time, like I've seen amazing northern lights that no one else gets to see because I'm flying in an airplane in like the Arctic and like at 3 a.m. Like, you know, I've gotten to, see some hospitals that are literally doing the best that they absolutely can. And the teams that they're running with, like, they're amazing, MacGyvering, like all these things to keep these kids alive, and being able to teach other people like things about pediatrics that they never knew before. Like I'm like, wow, I feel so privileged that I know all the stuff I know and that I'm able to help other people. Like I never, ever take my training for granted, ever.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, wanted to pop on here before we got into this next episode and let you know about a couple new rad ideas that we have for the podcast. So the first one is we have a survey up, and I would love to know what you guys think about the show. I'd love your feedback. I'd love your ideas for the next season, and I just love to know what you like and what you dislike about the podcast. And I'm going to sweeten the deal with a $50 gift card randomly drawn from everybody that completes the survey. The survey is going to be in the show notes of all of our shows, so no matter what time you start listening to the podcast at, you'll get a chance to win that gift certificate. The second thing that we're bringing in now is the ability for you guys to leave us a voicemail. You guys can actually call into the show, leave us a voicemail, let us know what you think about the show. If you have a funny story you'd like to share from your time as a first responder, I would love those and showcase those on the show as well. So make sure you guys check out that voicemail feature. It's going to be in the show notes, and check out the survey. Make sure that you get that chance to win that gift certificate. Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Like you're saying, the complexities of emergency care in general, and then take it in times by 10, because now we're dealing with kids. Because, and like I remember, like my friend Shannon, she's been on the podcast. She's an emerge nurse in Calgary, and she was going over to do children's emerge, and she just, we were just talking because we go camping all the time, and she's like, yeah, like how to run an IV on an adult. It's totally fucking different on a kid. And then she's like, or like the nose tube, right? Like, on an adult, you can, like, on a kid, it's way freaking harder. Like, yeah. And like everything's so much smaller, and everything is so much, and then like their body is so much smaller. So finding what you need on their body is even, and I always think like, because I donate to the Stollery hospital, and they'll send me a letter every month, like this, your money is helping these kids. And the one that they sent me a couple months ago was this, like, it must have been hours old baby, and having open heart surgery. And I was like, I can't eat, like, their heart is like the size of a fucking walnut, right?
Try seeing it, like their chest open and seeing it beating. It is like, it's like, I can't even put into words to you. To see, like, to be able to be privileged to be a part of that is insane. Like, I'm like, I can't even imagine being the people that are working on these kids, being the surgeon that's in there on a fucking walnut. Like, I can't even crack a walnut without it fucking shattering into. You want me to go in there and do open heart surgery? No, like, they are amazing.
These are special people.
Yeah.
Special people.
Like,
so
literally some of the best in the world. Like, it's insane to see them work.
Like I said, I bow down to them and to the people that work with these children, because it's amazing. And so if you
the parents is also, that's the thing, is like, you're not just working with a kid, like you said, like, to be that little baby, but like, imagine being that mom who's like 12 hours postpartum, and I'm taking their kid halfway across the country, and they're trusting me with their entire world. We always do our best to bring a parent with us. And a lot of the times, like, we do, but there's a small occasion when we can't. And like, that person is trusting me with their whole damn world right now. And like, that to me as a parent, like, oh my God, like, I can't even handle how much trust this person has to have in me right now. And so that in itself is almost scarier than like, I can easily save a life. Like, no problem, done before. That part of medicine doesn't scare me. It's like, literally not letting these parents down is like the hardest thing about the job.
I could totally see that, because like, I mean, and then having to be the person that turns around and says to them, like, I'm sorry, like, we didn't make it, or, like, I can't even imagine, especially like when I was pregnant with Rhiannon, my oldest, that we, new parents, you're doing all the like classes and everything. And they were like, what's your biggest fear? And I was like, my biggest fear is having a C-section.
And they were like, what? I was like, my big fear is having a C-section. They're like, I'm sorry, you're not scared about like having the baby, raising the baby. I was like, I don't want to have a C-section. And they're like, why don't you want to have a C-section? I was like, because that feeling of helplessness of like, you're going to put up, I was like, and if I have to have one, I said to my husband, I was like, if I have to have one, I'm not having that fucking curtain thing covering. I want to see it all. I need to see everything that's going on down there. And he was like, babe, you don't want to see that. I was like, yes, I fucking do. I need to see what's going on. Do not put me behind a curtain and leave me so I don't know what the fuck is going on. And don't strap my arms down. No, that to me still to this day terrifies me. Like there's no, I want to know what's going on. I want to know what's going on. So to be that parent and then have the baby like rushed out, cannot even imagine that feeling of helplessness. Like
parents are stronger than they give themselves credit for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So going back to like, so you're basically a response team essentially within the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
So like, what are are you getting called for like everything for transport? Like, are you getting called for like, no, I wouldn't say like non-emergent transport, but like this kid is, they're not crashing, it's not emergent, but like they should probably come down to the bigger hospital.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
You're still going and getting them. Okay.
Well, it depends. Like that's the great thing, like why we have these tools given to us. We have amazing telemedicine to like visually see these kids, and like our physicians are so amazing that a lot of the times these doctors in referral centers just don't see kids. And so sometimes like what's not scary to me is terrifying to them. So what it really helps is like for them to be able to talk to like us and our doctors to be like, hey, look, this kid definitely needs the stollery because you don't have the equipment or, the resources to take care of them, but they don't need us. So at that point, that's when we'll use ALS. Sometimes we even use BLS. It depends like what's going on, how close they are. So we'll utilize those resources where we can, but there is a certain extent that, even like ALS, like sometimes like we dispatch them to go pick up this kid to bring to the stollery and they call us, they're like, hey, this kid's looking so much worse. So then things change, but for the most part, we try because we only have 2 transport teams on in a shift. Sometimes we're lucky if we have even 1 because just like it's a small team. Mm-hmm. So we have to use those calls like very wisely. So if we send someone out for a kid that's like so that ALS could easily bring, and then we get a call that a kid needs to be put on ECMO, which is like that heart-lung machine a couple hours later, we have to be smart about that. So that's a really tough thing that our doctors have to make that call. Another great resource we have is like the STARS team. We will go with STARS sometimes to go pick up kids because they are super fast. Sometimes though, they're faster just going and picking them up and bringing them to us and not wasting that critical time. So they'll sometimes just do that quicker, but we do sometimes utilize the helicopter, which is really cool. But we'll utilize whatever's the best at given the call. So we have to really use our eyes and our ears and just hope that we're making the right decision. Things change so fast. Like there's been many calls where it's like, yeah, we'll just send the BLS team. And then like, the kids are resting on the way there. So like, things happen, things change. And that's the thing about kids. They're literally fine until they're not. And literally it's the most egg and like, you're just like, oh, children. Yeah. Like, why are you like this? Yeah. It's so unpredictable.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. So like describe to me what the plane looks like. Like what's the equipment that you have in there? Like what is it, like basically like an ambulance inside of a plane, or like how does that? Yeah.
And that's the thing, a lot of people think it's this like huge aircraft and that we have so much, like we can stand and like walk around, and it's tiny, like tiny. So essentially we use like what the like advanced paramedics, like the actual flight team will use. But then if it's a PEDS call, we just kind of take over. We take their airmedic with us always because, sometimes in terms of like loading the plane and like using everything in the back gets a little crazy. So it's nice we have that extra set of hands. But essentially all that's fitting on there is all of our bags. We bring 4 big backpacks with us, which I'm very happy I do CrossFit because they're heavy. We're essentially taking an entire ICU in 4 bags. Because like I said, a lot of referral hospitals don't have this equipment. So we have to take what we can fit in an entire hospital room plus more in these tiny bags. And then we have a stretcher. So it's your basic stretcher that you see, all EMS crews have, but it's pediatric friendly. And we have our own special IV pumps. We have our own monitor. And so the kiddo will sit on there, and it's hilarious because we pick up anything from like, fresh out the womb to like 18 years old with chest hair and 3 times my size. And I'm not exactly a tiny person. So it's funny when we see these like 18-year-olds like just bulging out the edges of these stretchers. But yeah, essentially the stretcher just goes in front of us. And so it'll be me, and then the RT will sit beside me, and then the medic and a parent. So it's a very crammed, like, it's very tight. Like I sit facing the stretcher and my knees are touching the stretcher. So, there is times when the patient crumps and like you have to do compressions on the aircraft. It is tight. Mm-hmm. You have to intubate on the aircraft, or you have to put an IV in. Like you are like working with such small room. Like you cannot stand up all the way in this aircraft. Like you have to be very creative. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, we use what planes are available to us. So the Edmonton plane is our biggest one that we have. So if every time we say it, like we hear, our central communications tell us that we have the Edmonton plane, we're like, yes, because it has extra seats and it is a bit bigger in terms of like moving around space. And then when they tell us, oh yeah, you got the Grand Prairie plane, or like, the other planes, we're like, like, oh, excellent, perfect. So that's always tough, but like, you make it work. And, that is also the fun part of our job, is like, you have to be creative in how you can get to your stuff quickly. So our team has been working with that throughout the years. We're constantly trying new equipment, which again, like donating to the Stollery is amazing because it allows us to get things that are making our jobs a lot easier and safer. So we always appreciate those donations, but yeah, it's a very tight space. I one time showed a picture to my labor and delivery colleagues of the inside of the aircraft because they had a patient sent to them, which doesn't typically happen because it usually goes to one of the other more acute hospitals. And they're like, oh, it must have been so big. I was like, So yeah. And then we get these families from like, very, very deep north that like don't know how long they're going to be in the hospital for. So they bring like 4 suitcases with them. And I'm like, nope, that's not going to fit. Like what's the most important?
One carry on. That's it. And you're paying for it.
Literally. And you're holding it on. So yeah, it's, I think the parents sometimes too get a little shocked at how small the aircraft is that they're going on. Like there's no bathroom. There's like nothing like that. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely interesting, work environments that is definitely disclosed to you before you apply for the job. So yeah, if you can do a ride along, it's great. So then that way you can be like, this is for me, or maybe this isn't, but yeah. It's fun though.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I even like ambulances, like last year we did a female first responder day at Blue Line Fitness Testing, and we're doing it again this year, June 23rd. So if you're in the city and you want to come and meet some pretty badass women, come on by. That's a quick plug. But my friend Sheila, who's a paramedic, she brought the ambulance. And like, I've been in an ambulance, like, I think twice. Like once I was for rugby injury and wasn't really kind of out of it. Didn't really know. And then, yeah, shocking. And then once I did it in high school, I was part of like the Mothers Against Drunk Driving group, and we did like a mock accident and stuff. Yeah. And so they loaded me in the ambulance, but like, I wasn't really paying attention to the ambulance. No. I wasn't really paying attention to like what the people are doing and everything. So then Sheila brought the ambulance last year, and she's giving me a tour. Mm-hmm. And she's like showing me, like, she's like, oh, and then we keep this stuff here. And like, again, it's highly organized, very specific. Yeah. Like very specific. These things are here because when I turn like this, I can get this and still be doing this with my other hand. But then she says to me, and she's like, and now picture in this space fighting somebody who's coming off drugs, mental health. Yeah. Crazy. Like, right. She's like, picture that while your friend is also still lights and sirens driving. Right. And she's like, and then you're trying to tackle somebody in the back. And I was just like, and I was sitting in like the little jump seat, like the little one that you're, I was like,
we always think that's the new hire.
I was like, I cannot fucking imagine. She did crack a joke. She's like, this is where we put the firefighters. We make them sit here so that they're out of the way, but they can still be
jumping like this. And like this is, and I have to start an IV right now. And you're like, nope. You better have a good hand. I hope you didn't have too much freaking coffee before you went to work.
That's exactly right. So I can picture in my head how small it is, but it's probably, like I said, probably smaller than that, which is crazy. So crazy. So going back to kind of the plane, so the pilot, basically not a trained medical professional whatsoever. They are just there to fly the plane, get you there, get you back.
They don't even know what we're going for, because it's almost like a conflict of interest if they know. And I think sometimes, especially with a pediatric, case, like would like to not know. Yeah. So the pilots don't know anything. Our medic is the only one that has like the details of the patient. So yeah, they literally have a door, they close it. The only time we communicate to them is like if we need to we have to pressurize the cabin, especially if we have a kid with like a brain injury or like a lung injury that they have a chest tube, or if we need to know like how far away from home because this kid's about to like crump on us, or if like we're in the air, our cell phones don't work and something happens and we're without a doctor, we need to use the satellite phone and contact them and pray to God that we can get some sort of connection to the satellite phone. And that those incidences happen few and far between. But yeah, essentially it's just in the plane, it's just me, my RT, the flight medic, and maybe a parent. So it's a small team, a small space. You get to know each other very well, very quickly.
Yeah. I would assume that teamwork dynamic needs to be really good too, right? You need to trust that your RT knows what they're doing. They need to trust that you know what they're doing. You 100%. Do you get to work with the same people? Like is it fairly consistent rotation?
Yeah, like especially because I mostly do nights, mostly for my kids. Otherwise, I won't ever see them. So, there's a few RTs that I work with mostly because they're also night owls like me. So that's, it's nice when you have the same people that you're constantly like gelling with and you don't even have to say anything to them. They just know your next move. Like I can look at one of my RTs and I'm already grabbing them what they need from me.
Yeah.
And so those relationships are so helpful especially when you have those really horrible calls, because like I've had far too many where it's like you don't have a doctor with you, you don't have extra hands with you, you are wearing 80 hats and yet you still have to find time to chart. Like it's a wild time. You have to be very good at like your time management, staying organized, and also you have to have a hell of a memory, because half the time you have to go back after 6 hours of hell and be like, what just happened? And now I have to make a whole entire patient chart and there was no one to write shit down for me. So yeah, it's definitely a job that is not for the faint of heart. So, I'm glad that I love it, because it was a lot of hell to go through in order to appreciate the job itself.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing too, is like documentation. As we all know, all of our first responders that listen, if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. So therefore you have to write every fucking thing down. Right. So yeah. My hack would be like in a code is if I wasn't directly involved with blood and all the shit, is I would be writing it on my blue glove. Like, okay, pulse is this, but BP was like, right. Da, 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 da. And then sometimes it would smudge, or sometimes you would touch like
throw
the
it
face.
away.
Yeah. Or throw it away. Yeah. Or I would touch my face and then I'd be like,
black everywhere,
blue or black on my face. But the glove notes, man, those are golden sometimes.
I've got so many tattoos. I just write it on my arm. And like people are like, don't you? I'm like, look at me. I don't care what's on my arm. And you know what? Like, I'm not going to wash up to my elbows. So usually it's a safe place. That's why I always bring a Sharpie with me, because I can remember, I always have it in my flight suit right at my arm length so I can quickly jot shit down. Because honestly, you don't know where your paper is when you need it.
No. And then so when somebody asks you for a pen, do you automatically do this and reach for your shoulders?
Oh yeah, I go. I have like usually. I'm like, I don't like to overpack or over prepare, but the one thing I always have is like more than one writing utensil. So that's the one thing I can promise. And if someone fucking touches my pen, you better give it back to me, as I will remember. I will remember.
It's so funny because it's like when we teach like rookies, like corrections officers, they're always like, you'll see them give their pen. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? We don't give the inmates our pen. And they're like,
never.
They're like, well, why not? I was like, are you going to touch it when they bring it back? Like,
no.
Oh my God. Like, or I see them take it back from the inmate and then without thinking about it, they stick the end of it in their mouth and they're,
the way I would just gargle hand sanitizer would,
I'm like, no, if that pen goes out, you can have it. You can have it. At this point, that is a lost pen. I I always, because ours was always in our like breast pocket, right? And so to this day, I've been out for 4.5 years. To this day, somebody be like, "Do you have a pen?" And I'm like, "Boop, boop,
Reaching.
boop," and I do the old like titty toss.
Pocket, the phantom pocket.
Where is it? Oh wait, I don't even have a shirt with fucking pockets on the front on today, but okay.
Right. Well, and I like, we only wear flight suits when we're in an aircraft, right? So I usually have the dorkiest fanny pack and everyone makes fun of me for it, but I'm like, I know where my shit is. Okay. And like, it's not falling in the toilet every time I take my scrubs off to go pee. Like, your pens are falling in every time. I was like, so who's laughing now? Like, leave me and my fanny pack alone.
There's
God.
a reason. There's a reason they were invented. There's a reason they were invented.
Love my fanny pack.
That's awesome. Okay, so I want to delve into, and we might get heavy and we might not. I want to delve into some of your kind of like most memorable moments, like moving through, like, again, 9 years. So not necessarily just sticking with transports, but you know, your ICU experience. Again, I can't even imagine the things you've seen and the things you've done. Again, especially dealing with kids, because you are seeing all the weird things. But you know, what are some things that stick out in your mind, like as you've kind of gone through your career in calls or in codes or things like that?
There's so many things, honestly, it's really hard. And like, we see in Edmonton, like we see all these like advertisements for these Stollery kids and like the Mighty Millions lottery and things like that. And like, I don't know if you ever remember see an ad with this little girl who swallowed a button battery. But that night I was actually, like, me and the other transport nurse that were on, it was kind of like we both got onto shift right at 7, and there was 2 calls. And so I went on the first one, and there was debating like because I showed up to work first, if I was supposed to go to that child or not. So anyways, I didn't end up going for her, but I went out for my transport, came back, and it was in the thick of COVID. So it was really kind of tough because we were only letting one parent come in. And this poor little girl, like, my colleague had picked her up and she had swallowed a button battery. And I hadn't really seen any button battery injuries at that point in my career. But I have never seen a child who I am amazed she's alive today, but I have never been more in awe of the team that we have that night. I will never forget that night. Like, we were like, no, bring both parents up. Like, we need to get both of them in there. Like, the rules don't really apply right now. We had so many surgeons, so many doctors, like, we gave so many units of blood. And like, we were all just like, even if you didn't believe in a higher power, everyone was like, praying for it. Cause like, this was just like one of those cases where everything was fine until it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And then now to like see that little child who's like all over these like amazing Stollery posters. And I'm like, holy shit, like we did this. Like, this is the hospital I work at. Like, this kid is here because of us. And like, now, like, the biggest advocate, I'm like, don't you dare gift my kids toys with these button batteries. Like, I will never, ever. Seeing what I saw, I was like, OMG. Like, that night I'll never forget. And I'll never forget that little girl. She's doing so amazing now. But like, things like that, like, they stay with you. Like, I find for me, unfortunately, the traumas really stay with me. Mm-hmm. Like I said, in my ICU, we see everything. We see transplants, we see surgeries, we see, just people who are sick and just need some time on a ventilator. Like, we've seen things with COVID, like, obviously the pandemic, but like, yeah, the traumas definitely get to me. Like, I am so cautious with kids and dogs because I've seen far too many family dogs who, they've always been a good family pet, and you just go wrong once with a toddler. Like, things like that like I've seen, unfortunately, dog bites go so fatally wrong, like, mm-hmm. things like that. And like, I also had 2 really hard calls this past year when I was pregnant with my youngest, and they were both within a month of each other. And so like, I'm hormonal, I'm miserable in pain, I already have a kiddo at home. And like, the first call I had, the kid had, arrested, came back, and, we brought a doctor with us because obviously that's a bit like more of a complex case. Like, we're not going for a quick retrieval, and the kiddo ended up dying as we got there. And that was probably the hardest call of my life. And not even because the kid passed away. Like, I think not that I've desensitized myself to loss, but I think I've just, kind of accepted that, this is how I need to cope to get this, to be in this job for as long as I have been. But it was the parents for me that made it the hardest thing I've ever seen, like to see parents just like grieve over their child because this death was so unexpected the way that they did. Like it is forever etched in my brain. And like, you know, that was the first time I feel like, you know, parents had, you know, trusted that we were going to help their kid and we weren't able to. And like things like that is very hard. I like will never remember the things that they said to us. And like, you know, I think that was the one day I came home and I took work home with me. I hugged my daughter as soon as I got through the door, threw my bag, and I just cried because the kids, like my daughter was the same age as the child that passed. And so like, it just was like, things like that get hard when you can see your own kid in it.
Yes, 100%.
And I think that's like what you were saying before is like, I don't think I could do it. And it's like, I think the reason I've stayed in peds so long is because I was in it before I had kids. And for me, it's not the death part of my job that's hard. Like what's hard is the suffering. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is death is actually can be very beautiful and very, very freeing in a lot of ways. And I think with kids, you know, no one wants to see a kid die. Like that's not why we have this job. We try to make sure these kids like can grow into adults and, you know, but unfortunately sometimes like life is really shitty and not fair at all. So these kids are dealt the worst hands that they don't deserve in the slightest. But, you know, sometimes like you understand why people pray for death, because it is a lot easier than seeing someone suffer, especially a child who, you know, can't even consent to what they're going through because like, you know, their parents are trying to do what's best for them and they totally are. But, you know, it's tough. If little voices could talk to you, you know, they could tell you a lot. Like, you know, another really tough one I remember it was Christmas, of course. And this young patient I had, he was passing, and it was like, obviously like Christmas is a hard holiday to go through anything like that. And he wanted to go so bad. He was suffering. He was just, it was hard to watch, and you had to keep it together because like, you know, I was fighting tooth and nail to save this kid's life. Like, I don't think I peed the entire shift I was on because it was just constant, like, you know, thing after thing after thing I had to do to just keep this kid like alive. And like, I'll never forget the words he said to me, like, you know, he was ready, but his parents weren't. And it was just the hardest thing. And for me, being the person that shut off all the machines that, you know, were keeping him alive, and then to like have the family witness that was hard. And I like hearing the screams. It's a hard thing. And I had to go home and pretend that like, you know, it's still Christmas, like, you know, that is hard to turn off those hats when you're at work and come home and just act like, let's celebrate, even though you had just seen a family that had their whole world taken from them. Like that's fucking heavy, you know, and things like that. I honestly could not do the job I do without the outlets I have in my life. And I'm very lucky that I've found what works for me to cope with this job. Like, I think everybody in the world should have a therapist. I don't know why people don't, but like, I think people, especially in like critical care, first responder jobs, I think it should be mandatory that everyone has a therapist they see once a month. I wish it was funded. Maybe one day we'll get there. Like, I'm happy I get to crush weights and slam them on the ground at CrossFit because that is a huge physical outlet for me when I don't necessarily have that like mental outlet. And honestly, like, just, I'm very lucky that shift work is great in the sense that like you can maybe work 2 shifts a week and you're done and you have 5 days to recuperate and mentally like have that time. Whereas like a Monday to Friday, you're working 5 days a week still. Like, I'm very lucky that I still get that time, like 4 or 5 days after a stretch that might be shitty, to like, you know, give my mind and body that break. So, you know, with that stuff, you have to find what you cope. Otherwise that job will eat you alive 100%.
Yeah. I mean, you've touched on so many key things, like exactly that, the outlets for any, and I've preached this before in episodes and I will continue to preach it. You cannot become your job. That cannot be your sole identity. Those cannot be your only friends that you have are work friends. You cannot go home and talk about work. You have to have separation, because if you do not, you will burn out. Like, you will, it's not a, you know, you will burn out, you will implode, and you will implode all over the people around you that love you. And you're not even going to know that you're fucking doing it. It will just happen. so yeah, the outlets, sports, friends, outside people, whatever the fuck it, and it's different for everybody, but whatever the fuck it, you want to crochet, fucking go home and crochet your heart out. Do it. Make it happen.
Sourdough, you get
Yeah.
you do that, okay? Keeping a little Tamagotchi sourdough starter alive, bringing life into the world, great.
Yes.
Like that's also why I took a side job in labor and delivery, because I was like, man, I'm surrounded by so much death. Like I need to see some life. And so that's why like I have my other gig in nursing, because like I need the joy. And so that's been a really good outlet, and I love that balance. And they're both very fast-paced jobs. They, you know, I can leave both feeling fulfilled, but it's nice that I don't have to put all my eggs in one basket. I love nursing for that way, is that you don't have to stick to the same thing your whole life.
Yes.
You can switch it up as often as you want. It's great.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say the second thing that you really touched on is, you know, like death can be beautiful. And so my friend Shannon, again, she started in labor and delivery, then went to emerge, then did a little bit, you know, a stint over here, just like you're saying, because in nursing, you can fucking do all these different things. It's amazing.
100%.
And her current gig now is palliative care. And I said to her, girl, I don't know how you can do that. Like, I don't know how, and she's palliative home care. I was like, I don't know how can you do that? Like, how can you? And she goes, you know what? Like, she was, part of it is because she didn't know them when they were thriving, right? She's only ever seen these patients in this state. And she's like, they're ready. They have made peace with it. Their families have not. That's who you're dealing with. You're not necessarily dealing with the patient. At this point, if they're palliative, they've made peace with it and they're ready. You're really just dealing with their family and their loved ones. And she's like, and when it comes and you're there for it, it's peaceful for them. They look at peace. It's not a traumatic thing. It's traumatic for the family, absolutely, unless they have also had time to protect, like perhaps come to terms with it. But she's like, the people, they're ready and they're good. And they you know, it is a beautiful thing. And I was just like, I can see what she's saying, but I don't know that I could do it still. Like, I think that, you know, that would be one of those things where I'd be like, I cannot do this. I get attached too much. Like, I get attached way too much.
If I had $1 for everyone that when I tell them the job I have, they're like, I don't know how you do it. And I'm like, man, I don't know how a Starbucks barista does it during rush hour on a fucking Monday morning. Like, every job is hard. Like, every single job has a hard. I just choose my hard. And to me, like I said, it's not the death. It's like, it's dealing with like the families and it's dealing with the suffering. But like, also we have so much joy where we're like I was saying about that little battery button kiddo, like we did that. Like, that is so amazing that we get to see this kid's face plastered over every ad all over the city. Like, I'm so proud to work where I work, because we do save so many lives, and so many families are so grateful that like we were able to fly, you know, all the way to Inuvik and literally pick up their kid and bring them somewhere that otherwise they wouldn't have had a chance. Like, how amazing is that? Like, we give kids and families such a good chance at life that I love that I can say that I'm a part of that. And I love that, you know, we continue to progress in what we're doing and make it better. And like, I'm so happy for all the donors that help out, because like it wouldn't happen.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna plead ignorance, because like, I don't, what happens when you swallow a button battery? Clearly it's fucking bad news bears, but I don't know. And now you have me stressing out, because I'm like, I know that they're all over my fucking house. So what do I need to do to get rid of these button batteries?
Thank God your girls are old enough to know to not put them in their mouths. But like my little girls, you know, I'm hoping that they don't ever do this. But essentially the acid from the batteries like will just chew apart tissue. And you pray that if it ever gets ingested, it only eats away the esophagus. But right, you know, behind the esophagus is our major vessels. And so, you know, it can eat away at the trachea, which is in front of the esophagus. So it can eat away at our airway, which makes it very difficult to ventilate those patients. When it gets eating away at those major vessels, you worry about bleeding out. And those are big vessels that you have to act fast on in order to like save. So if anyone ever suspects their kid has ever swallowed a button battery, spoonfuls of honey every 10 minutes, because the honey will hopefully coat that battery, and then rush to your local emerge. It's always better to be safe than sorry. If you take an x-ray, they didn't swallow it, fantastic. Then you'll find it somewhere. But like I always say to parents, because I always get these questions all the time, should I take my kid to emerge? If it makes you feel better and safer, always go for it. You know, you'll never be, wow, I'm so mad I erred on the side of caution, because, you know, like that's the thing is like, I think anyone in healthcare gets the 10,000 text messages like, what's this look like? Should I do this? Should I do that? And I always say, if you feel better about getting it checked out, go. Like, I am only a nurse. Like I can only do so much with my license. Yeah. But yeah, that's my biggest thing is like first aid for battery swallowing, honey, and go to emerge. Like big takeaways.
Like I said, I had no fucking idea. No idea. So we have
those annoying reading cards, electric toothbrushes, all those freaking toys that kids have. Like I'm just like, also too, those toys, they're annoying as shit. That's mostly the reason I don't want them in my house is the noises. I'm like, oh, I'm overstimulated. Please get them out of my house. Batteries aside, you know, piece, but like almost it's mostly the noises that they make. Oh my God.
Okay. No, like I said, I mean, we're learning shit here on this podcast. Not only do we laugh, we learn things. So amazing. Because I had no fucking clue. So good to know. Good to know. Okay. We're getting close to the end of the time, and I want to make sure that I wrap up with some of my favorite questions and some of our listeners' favorite questions. But it's been amazing. Like again, I've learned so much. This is why I love this podcast. I learn from every single person that I talk to, just like random facts, cool things, like what the job is like. I learn shit all the time. So thank you for sharing it. I do appreciate it. Okay, so rapid fire. I mean, you've already alluded to the fact that you sometimes don't get to eat or pee or do anything except for try and keep a human being alive.
Yes.
But when you're on shift, and it might relate back to also when you're going on these flights and you don't have access to vending machines and what is your favorite like food or snack to like bring with you or pack or to be able to kind of munch on while you're doing 85 other things?
Oh, you know, I'm a big fan, and I'm a salt person. Like I need salt because I also have really low blood pressure. So if I have low blood pressure, I'm like useless to like everyone. But also too, the thing about flying and having those long ambulance rides is we have to like watch how much water we have. So I find like I have to watch how much salt I have. But if I could just have whatever salt I want, I love like salted those wasabi almonds from like Blue Diamond. Those are so good with some cheese. Oh, those are so good. My breath is going to smell horrible. And I'm so sorry to everyone I share a tiny fixed wing with, but sorry, mom needs her protein. Basically anything that's tiny that I can eat that doesn't need like to be heated up. Great. I can fit it in my flight suit pocket. Amazing. Like sometimes we'll also have amazing like little snack bins in our airplanes, and they'll have like those nostalgic like cheese dipper things with like the breadsticks that you get from like the superstore. Those are also one of my favorites. I don't know why, but they're so nostalgic. The Cheese Whiz is so good at 3 a.m. Like, oh, I'm alive again. And I love instant coffee. That and instant coffee, like from Transcend especially. Transcend has these amazing packets of instant coffee that doesn't taste like crap. It's so good. I'm like, I put it in a quick, like basically a shot glass amount. I'm like, some nuts and cheese. I'm like, I'm ready to go. I don't need anything for 20 hours. Come at me. It's the best.
I fucking love you. Oh my God. Hit me. I'm ready.
Seriously, you sometimes have to, because every transport call, it could be like nothing. And then you show up and the kid's like dead. And you're like, I'm glad I had my protein and my carbs. Like, good. Ready to do it.
Fuck, you're funny. Okay. I like it. All right. Second question. You get to use a bunch of different pieces of equipment, obviously within your work. You get to, and you're jammed into this fucking plane with 4 bags, but what is your favorite piece of equipment that you get to use?
The new thing that we have gotten, which I'm so pumped that we have, like I tested it out before I went on mat leave and we just actually purchased it when I have been off, but is a portable ultrasound machine. Oh. So it's really cool. It connects to your phone. We have an iPad now, which also we just got because the children love their Paw Patrol and we must entertain them on these flights. But yeah, it's really cool. This little tiny ultrasound probe is probably the size of an iPhone, which is awesome because it's obviously space is a huge thing for us, and it connects onto the Wi-Fi on these like on these tablets. So we can ultrasound so many things to see if there's issues with these kids, because a lot of these referral centers don't have this equipment, or you're mid-flight and you need to know something. It's especially helpful with doing IV pokes on kids. We can almost guarantee that the first time we poke these kids using ultrasound is the only poke that we'll need to do with them. Especially these kids that have chronically been to the hospital, their veins are just blown and scarred. And so, you know, it helps reduce anxiety a lot with parents, especially because no parent wants to see their kid getting poked more than they have to. And so the fact that I can be like, I can basically get this first try, and the parents are like, I love you. So that part is definitely my favorite. I love being the hero who can do the IV in one poke. It's part of like the best part of my day when parents are like, oh, I'm so happy that you got that. I'm like, me too. So that's my favorite piece of equipment. Thank you to the donors of the Stollery.
That's awesome though. Like, and like you said, like, I mean, it's small, it's portable, it's highly functional. Like, that's awesome. That's awesome. And it doubles because you can also watch Paw Patrol on it. So yay.
Paw Patrol for the children. Okay. Otherwise they're sometimes stronger than those drunk men in the back of the ambulance. Okay. Yeah. Trying to wrestle a 2-year-old is sometimes harder than a 300-pound inebriated Fred on a Friday night. Jeez.
100%. If you've ever tried to put your kid in a car seat and they don't ever want to go in the car seat, and you're like, I don't understand how you have this strength, John. Karate chop.
I know. You eat 1 yogurt cup a day. Where are you getting all this strength? And you slept 4 hours yesterday. You're insane.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I do not miss the bucket days. I do not miss the car seat days at all. I miss the babies. Like, again, your littles, like the ones that come to rugby. I'm like, oh my God, I will hold these babies all day long. And everyone's like, do you want another one? And I'm like, yeah, I want this, but I don't want all the fucking shit that comes with them. I'm done with that.
I can't wait to be done with car seats. Oh my, I'm so far away from that though.
It comes faster than you think. Don't worry. Don't worry. Okay, the last one I have for you, and you've thrown out some really good ones just like through our conversation, but what would be a piece of advice that you would give to somebody that is contemplating either just a career in nursing or like specifically kind of is following the same trajectory you are, wants peds, wants ICU, wants these flight nurse kind of opportunities?
I think, try it 100%, go for it. You never know until you try it. But like my biggest advice is if your heart is not in it, leave it, because life is too short to be miserable in what you're doing every day. You're not obligated or stuck to do anything. So like if you're hating it, you're bringing that energy to work. Everyone has to deal with that. You are not finding that you're fulfilled. Like try something else. So that's the best thing. I think I also gravitated towards nursing is that like I knew that there'd be so many opportunities that if I didn't love what I did right away, I could find something else. And so that's like what I'm also looking forward to in the future. Like, of course, transport is always going to be close and dear to my heart, but I know longevity wise, it might not be something that's wise for me to do forever. So I'm constantly thinking about like, what'll be my step when my kids are older, like, do I want to go to community nursing? Do I want to do travel nursing? Like, that's always been interesting to me. Do I want to go like do injectables? Probably not, but like, it looks pretty glamorous right now. All my friends with their nice office hours.
Yep.
But that's the nice thing is like, I love what I do. So that's why I've stuck to it for 9 years. And yeah, when I stop loving it, I'll go find something else,
Yeah, I think that's totally sound. And that's something you can use across the board. It doesn't matter what career you're in. And the other part that I like about that is like, you're looking ahead. And I think that that's something that we don't do a lot of times as first responders. We just are like, this is what I'm doing right now.
Until we die.
Yes. Right.
No, it's not the case.
Yeah. I love that you're like, at this stage of my life, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? And how can I start to build the pathway to that, right? What courses do I need? What training do I need? What shadows do I need? Who do I know that works over there that I can maybe start to talk to about that? So I think that's a phenomenal piece of advice. Phenomenal. Well, like I said, it has been a fucking treat chatting to you today. I'm so glad you agreed to be on and decided to take the plunge and jump on with me. Awesome. Super fun. Great stories. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for saving lives. Thank you for going out there and getting these kids from all across Western Canada and doing your damnedest to make sure that they are healthy and safe and that we take care of them properly. I know as a parent myself, absolutely that trust in the work that you do and in sending my kids with somebody like you, I would be, as much as I'd be shitting pants, I would also be like, yeah, I fucking trust that lady and she's gonna do it. And I know she is. I have fucking confidence and faith in her. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for taking care of our littles. Any last words before we sign off?
No, I think this was the funnest time ever. I love talking about my job because I don't get to do it a lot. And I'm hope that everyone learned a little something today. And thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. And yeah, if people do have questions and you want to know more, again, I can connect you with Taylor. You guys can chat more if you're interested in getting into the career, you want to go for a shadow. Again, I can connect you with Taylor. I'll put my information in the show notes so you guys can reach out to me and then I can reach out to her. But yeah, let's go and enjoy the rest of this beautiful one-time sunny day in June here where we live and get outside.
100%. So nice outside, and go Oilers.
Yes, and go Oilers. Fucking right. And if anybody is listening to this and you just said, Oilers, fuck you. Find a new podcast.
Get out of here.
Yeah. All right. Have a great one.
Thanks.
Well, that's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in, listening, giving me your time, your energy, and your attention. I completely appreciate it. Make sure you check out our next episode with another badass female first responder anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at bluelinefitnesstesting.com. I hope you stay safe, keep your head on a swivel, and watch your six.